One of the most challenging questions facing city administrators, not just in Europe but across the world, is how to manage number of vehicles coming into urban spaces. There are numerous factors at play, ranging from human health and pedestrian safety to economic factors and simple traffic jams. So how do you approach it? How do you get people out of their vehicles and convince them to take another mode of transport? Air pollution causes an estimated 40,000 deaths every year in Europe, and traffic is of course a contributing factor to that toll. Some cities have introduced bans on diesel cars, often the worst vehicles for air pollutants, to try and limit the number of problematic vehicles on their roads. But diesel ban is a bit of a misnomer, as it's not the fuel itself that's being banned, but any cars that do not meet certain emission standards. In Brussels, for example, the very oldest diesels are now precluded from entering the city limits, and the criteria will become more strict over the coming years. In London, those same cars are not banned, but subject to additional charges. It basically reveals what is becoming somewhat of a self-evident truth. City authorities are the ones best placed to set the rules for issues like this. Here is what Brussels residents have to say about it.
I think we have way too many cars in Brussels and in Belgium, really. And so I think, that's one of the aspects of the problem that we should look at.
I think that people can be both cyclists and car drivers. And I think that you should always have a multitude of different modes of transport available to the people living in the city and getting around the city. I wouldn't necessarily directly say ban a certain group of vehicles, although, of course, I support the trend of slowly phasing out the more polluting ones.
If you know that diesel is causing health problems for people, then you have to act. But it has to be done in a way that's sensitive to people's needs and to actually solving other problems as well in the city. It's not just diesel fumes that are the problem, it's also number of cars.
German cities like Hamburg and Stuttgart were pioneers in restricting traffic in this way, but local officials had to earn the right to set the rules. Judges decided ultimately that they did have the power to implement diesel bans, after critics had insisted it should be a federal decision made by the government in Berlin instead. Polluting cars seem to have a bleak future ahead of them. The European Commission will ratchet up EU-wide CO2 busting targets for new car sales, and is even exploring the idea of banning the internal combustion engine, as an ever-growing need for more ambitious climate policies forces policymakers to think radically. Some countries like the UK and Denmark already want to do that after 2030. But in the case of EU nations, internal market rules make the prospect of a full ban an unlikely one. Scaling back the use of polluting cars, given the impact on human health and the climate, is ostensibly a no-brainer. But people still need to move between and within cities, so more sustainable modes have to keep pace with demand. One option is to provide motorists with enough electric car infrastructure so that they can confidently make the switch to battery power, without worrying about where they're going to charge up their vehicles. Plugs like these are starting to become more commonplace, and the EU has a target of at least 3 million across the continent by 2030. Then there's public transport. Cities are investing in electric bus fleets, additional metro services, and new technologies like autonomous driving that could increase capacity. But there's still the ghost at the feast, coronavirus. In the new age of social distancing, at least until a vaccine or better treatment is available, the prospect of getting on a packed bus is not appealing. Human health and climate breakdown then are no longer secondary concerns when it comes to thinking about urban mobility and providing public services. It is easy to imagine that more cities and more governments will be making radical changes in the sector over the course of the coming decade. How quickly those changes take hold, though, remains to be seen.